Thank you. Mr. Sewell, are you a hydrologist?
No, I am not.
Are you an irrigation engineer?
No, ma'am.
Do you manage irrigation projects or municipal water supplies?
No, ma'am.
Are you a farmer?
I am not.
Okay. You know, I'm honored to have represented irrigation districts, municipalities, counties, farmers, ranchers throughout my legal career. And two of the projects that I was able to work on were the two first projects built under the 1902 Reclamation Act, the Buffalo Bill Reservoir up near Cody, Wyoming, and Pathfinder Reservoir in central Wyoming. Buffalo Bill is 870,000 acre feet, and Pathfinder is 1.16 million acre feet of water. I also dealt a lot with Lake McConaughey in Nebraska, roughly 2 million acre feet. And when I went back and looked at the history of these projects, one of the things that struck me is how the people at that time pretty much say exactly what you were saying today, which is that these projects aren't feasible, or that there isn't sufficient water, or that it doesn't make sense economically, or these are not good projects. And then we look at what we have been able to create over the last 130 years by building the Klamath Project, and the ones that I just described, and pretty much every single time they prove people like you absolutely wrong. And I think that that's what we will see if we invest in our infrastructure the way that our forefathers did. When I look at those magnificent projects that they built, and I look what they've created in terms of fisheries and sufficient water for recreation and for irrigation and growing food and the communities that they support, what you realize is that the folks who built those and had that vision, and they did have vision, it wasn't just a vision of scarcity and a vision of naysaying. They actually had a vision of what they could build and what they could create, and they did it. And they created those projects not just for themselves, but they created those projects for us to this day. I look at Ms. Hill and Mr. Bordeaux and Mr. Mueller, and I think about what you do in terms of trying to provide water, trying to grow food, trying to feed the people of this country, trying to make sure that there are sufficient water supplies for our citizens, and I commend you on the work that you do. I'm glad that you're not naysayers. I'm glad that you're not the kind of people who say, no, we can't build these projects, we can't operate these projects, because history has shown that we can. It's interesting that I have people tell me that in Wyoming, we don't have places for reservoirs. We don't have areas where we could store additional water, where we could open up additional lands for irrigation, because I'm here to tell you that we do. And there are many places in Wyoming where we could build such projects. One of the things that would be important in those areas is that that's also where we can create fisheries where there are none now. And the reason that there aren't any now is because in Wyoming, like so much of the western United States, without irrigation, without reservoirs, we don't have fisheries, because many of our streams go dry by July of every year. And maybe, Mr. Sewell, you weren't aware of that, but in Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, many of our streams don't have live water because we are snowpack states. And once that snowpack is gone, that's kind of the end of our irrigation season or our ability to have water. Mr. Bordeaux, I want to thank you for being here and for your service to our country. And I wanted to highlight something you pointed out in your testimony, and that is after mentioning the obvious need to increase the amount of water stored through surface infrastructure and groundwater storage projects, you warned that if we do not do this, we will continue the pendulum of extremes of abundance and scarcity. And I think that that's one of the things that strikes me and that Mr. Duarte has said repeatedly to me is that there isn't morality in scarcity. Yet that seems to be what the other side continues to push. According to the Pacific Institute, California's urban areas are letting between 770,000 and 3.9 million acre feet of water wash out to sea, depending on how dry or wet the year is. Mr. Bordeaux, while there are many things we can do to improve the water situation, can you speak to what a year like this could have looked like if surface infrastructure reclamation projects were a priority to the state of California and the current administration?
Well, I'm in a region that's capable of growing food in abundance, and we do it to the highest and most stringent environmental standards in the world. We can provide food to our nation, and if we have water, we can not only help our food security, but we can create jobs and opportunities and allow people to live the American dream. And so, yes, I do think water is still a necessity, and we should invest in our future.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. I recognize Ranking Member Huffman for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. Sewell, apparently your testimony